At early night, a carriage arrived at the mansion. Light reflected on the estate, revealing how beautiful and enormous it was. Inside the carriage, our female lead looked outside. She had finally arrived at the Blois Duchy. A man escorted her as she stepped out of the carriage. She looked gorgeous, with red hair and striking golden eyes that were utterly captivating. She thought to herself that now that she had come this far, there was no turning back. Today, she was going to marry Duke Dimitri, the man known as the world's greatest villain. She was very scared at this moment, but it was something she had to do, because this was the only way Rowain's ending could be changed. This world was one where werbeasts were persecuted, despite the affectionate love between the dog werbeast Cadiz and Princess Elaine. The story took place inside the Rofan novel The Princess and the Hunting Dog. Among all the characters, she had transmigrated into Romain Larzel, the novel's most vicious villainess. Shakar couldn't believe she had transmigrated just like that, and into the body of the top villainess at that. All she had wanted was to find a cat. In her previous life, she had lived with her grandmother after her mother sadly passed away. She devoted her time to taking care of stray cats. Her affection for them grew stronger over the years. The cats would follow her around, and she looked after them as if they were her own children for almost 5 years. But one day, tragedy struck. Someone mixed pesticide into the cat food. When she discovered 3 of them collapsed on the ground, vomiting blood, they died right in front of her eyes. Unsu was very angry. How could someone put poison in their food? Today, she decided to take them to her home. If she had moved just a little faster, maybe she could have saved them. Her grandmother comforted her, telling her that it was not the time to cry, and that they didn't even know if one of them might still be alive. That night, she decided to go out and look for the last cat. The visibility was poor, and everything around her was completely dark. As she searched, her torchlight went off. She was relieved that she had bought some extra batteries for the torch. While she was replacing them, the infamous assassin, Truckkuin, suddenly appeared in front of her. And for Truckkuin, the mission was a success. For her, everything went black. Then she heard the crying of a cat. She saw the 4 of them floundering around, trying to find the light. When she opened her eyes, she ended up here. The first thing she thought was, what if she couldn't get out of here? The cats she loved were all gone. Would she ever be able to see her grandmother again? Lingering on these thoughts, she got fired up. She didn't have time for the luxury of wallowing in sorrow. Now that she had transmigrated into Lady Rowain's body, she had to find a way to survive. In the original novel, Lady Rowain was blinded by greed and power. She even became the elderly emperor's concubine. After committing all sorts of atrocities with the power she wielded, she was killed miserably in the end. She did not want to die like that. However, when she came to her senses in this world, the original Rowain had already done everything necessary to become the emperor's concubine. To change the novel's ending, she had created a plan. Instead of her older sister, Linear, she would enter into a contract marriage with the novel's villain, Duke Dimitri. The Blois Duchy possessed power strong enough to rival the imperial palace. Because of that, the palace had made every possible move to keep the duchy in check. Therefore, if she married Duke Dimitri, she could avoid becoming the emperor's concubine. As for Linear, she was Lady Rowain's half-sister. After their father, Count Larzel, married Rowain's mother, Linear began to suffer mistreatment. Eventually, she was married off, essentially sold, for a large dowry. Rowain believed it would be better for Linear if she married in her place. However, there was one major problem. Lady Rowain had always despised werbeasts, and the husband she was about to meet was a feline werbeast. She cried as she thought through her plan. She had no idea whether it was a good idea or not, but it was probably better than dying. And so, on the morning Linear was supposed to marry Duke Dimitri, Lady Rowain barged into her sister's room, shocking her. She walked straight up to Linear and told her to take off her wedding gown immediately. We have to change clothes before night arrives. Linear, crying, asked her why she was suddenly acting so kind. But Rowain said they didn't have time to talk and urged her to hurry. After some time, they exchanged clothes. Lady Rowain told Linear that she was hiding in this room because she didn't want to marry. Linear asked how she knew and why she was acting so strangely. Rowain grabbed Linear's hands and told her to feel at ease. Just think of this as my apology for being a bystander to Mother's abuse all this time. I will marry Duke Dimitri. You already have someone else who loves you. Linear was delighted by her sister's words. She had never thought Rowain could be such a kind person. Lady Rowain told her to run away while she went to the carriage. The knights had arrived and would come in any moment. Soon, the soldiers barged into the room. Lady Rowain covered her face with the wedding veil. They forcefully grabbed her and took her away, not realizing she was not Linear. Linear seized the opportunity and ran away. They threw Rowain into the carriage and locked the door. But she was secretly happy. Her plan had worked. The novel's original plot was already straying from its path. And now she had finally arrived at the Blois Palace. She felt so nervous she could barely breathe. A butler greeted her and welcomed her into the palace, escorting her to where his master was waiting. Inside the office, a white-haired man was working through stacks of papers. The butler escorted Rowain inside. Duke Dimitri said, "Oh, you're finally here." Rowain looked at him. He was incredibly handsome, with striking green eyes. For a moment, she was captivated. She pulled herself together. She didn't have time for this. "Focus, Lady Rowain. Focus." Duke Dimitri said that since they would soon be married, it would be better for them to at least recognize each other's faces. He stepped closer to her. He was taller than she had expected. As he reached up to lift her wedding veil, nervousness surrounded her. Considering that he was a feline werbeast, she decided to close her eyes. When meeting a cat for the first time, one should slowly blink to convey no ill will. A greeting cats often use. So she slowly blinked at him. To her surprise, he looked baffled. He asked her if she had lost her mind. The wedding veil was lifted. Tension filled the air. Then he said coldly that she was not Linear, the one for whom he had paid the Count a large sum of money. My package has been switched." Duke Dimitri looked at Lady Rowain sharply. "Why are you here instead of Linear?" She hadn't expected to be exposed so quickly. Her mind raced as she struggled to think of an explanation. Dimitri stepped closer and placed a hand on her shoulder, making her even more nervous. In the novel, Duke Dimitri of Blois was portrayed as capricious, cold-hearted, and cruel. She had to answer carefully. "I am Lady Rowain Larsel," she replied steadily. "And I came of my own will to marry you." The Duke smirked. "Marry you? Marry someone who deceived me?" She realized at once that her plan had failed. Swallowing her pride, she bowed her head slightly. "I had no intention of deceiving you," Lady Rowain said, "but I apologize for not informing you in advance. The marriage agreement was between our families. I came because I believed I was qualified. Am I not eligible to be your bride?" "The document stated I had no issue with your background," Dimitri replied coolly. "The problem is you. Your hobby, from what I hear, is being cruel to beastmen. Why should I marry someone who abuses werbeasts?" She met his gaze confidently. "You don't have to worry about that. I will never be cruel to you." The Duke was visibly taken aback by her words. Then he burst into laughter. Rowain blinked. "What's wrong?" "It's quite amusing," he said, still smiling faintly. "Hearing you say you won't be cruel to me." He rang a bell. A servant entered at once. "Guide Lady Rowain to the guest room," Duke Dimitri ordered. The butler gestured for her to follow, and she obeyed. Their first meeting had been intense. She couldn't read the Duke's expression at all. However, since he hadn't thrown her out, it meant he had no immediate intention of rejecting her. For now, that was enough. The butler escorted her to a simple guest room and informed her that if she needed anything, she could pull the bell string. She thanked him politely. Standing by the window, Rowain looked out at the dark grounds of the duchy. In the original novel, Linear had been guided to a luxurious room on the 4th floor, the chambers reserved for the Duke's family. In contrast, she had been placed in a modest guest room. It was clear that Duke Dimitri did not acknowledge her as his wife. Though it wasn't ideal, she was relieved for the moment. She glanced at the clock. Soon it would be midnight. Would the Duke be able to reach his room safely? In the novel, the Duke of Blois suffered from a curse, a magical affliction that poisoned his body and forced him to live in constant, unbearable pain. It was the top secret of the Duke of Blois. Since she already knew this from the original story, she intended to use it to her advantage and strike a deal Duke Dimitri could not refuse. Meanwhile, in the office, the butler poured a glass of wine. "What do you plan to do with her?" he asked carefully. Duke Dimitri remained silent for a moment. Even he seemed uncertain. "Isn't she one of the Emperor's women?" The butler continued. "I heard that not long ago, at the royal banquet, she kissed Hermann Hesse in front of the Emperor." The Duke frowned slightly. An unpredictable woman had suddenly appeared as his bride. What were her true intentions? Suddenly, a sharp pain struck him. "My lord, are you all right?" the butler asked anxiously. His illness was acting up again, so he decided to go and rest. The butler said he would escort him to his bedroom. The butler escorted the Duke and then left the room. Inside the darkened room, Duke Dmitri lay on the bed as the pain intensified. It felt as though poison was spreading through his veins. His thoughts drifted unexpectedly to Rowain. Her scent, it had been strangely pleasant. So pleasant that it almost eased his headache. Suddenly, the door opened slowly and quietly. Even in his weakened state, Dmitri noticed immediately. "Shaddam," he whispered. A snake-like shadow materialized from the darkness and coiled around the intruder, restraining her. Dmitri's eyes turned cold. "I treated you as a guest, and now you sneak into my bedroom." He stared at her dangerously. "What is your intention? Or should I kill you for daring to annoy me?" Lady Rowain was trapped by his magic, unable to move. She could feel his impatience and his killing intent. She had to act quickly. Noticing the strain on his face, she understood that his illness was flaring up. "The pain you're in," she said urgently. "I can get rid of it." She met his gaze without hesitation. "I can cure you." Duke Dimitri's gaze turned intense. "How do you know about my illness?" he demanded. Lady Rowain quickly made an excuse. She explained that her earring had fallen off earlier, and while searching for it, she had heard his groaning from inside the room. That was why she had approached his door. As she spoke, his pain surged again. His head throbbed violently. With a sharp breath, he released her from his magic. "Leave. Right now," he ordered coldly. But Lady Rowain stood her ground. "I have the ability to heal," she said firmly. "Please give me a moment. If you believe I'm lying, you may punish me however you wish." He did not believe her. His eyes darkened. "I told you to leave." Suddenly, he grabbed her wrist and pinned her down. "I warned you not to come close to me," he said in a low voice. "If anything happens, it will be your fault." In the original novel, no one possessed healing abilities, except for the one person whose power she now carried. When she first discovered that she had this ability, she had been shocked. It had also filled her with sorrow. If she had possessed this power before, perhaps she could have saved those kittens. That thought had given her the idea. She would use her special power to strike a bargain with the Duke. It was simple. If she could cure the Duke of Blois and gain his favor, they could establish a contract marriage. Under the protection of the Blois Duchy, her safety would be guaranteed. But the situation shifted suddenly. The Duke tightened his grip and pinned her more firmly. He leaned closer to her neck, inhaling deeply, his nose brushing against her skin. His demeanor had completely changed. Did he lose his mind? Rowain thought in alarm. He pulled her hand toward him and rubbed it slowly. "This scent, it makes me feel good," he muttered. A realization struck her. Since he was already touching her, she could use her healing magic on him. Rowain began channeling her healing power. A warm, luminous aura filled the room. The Duke stiffened. His eyes cleared slightly as he came back to his senses. "What did you do to me?" he demanded. Relief flooded her. She had successfully used her healing magic on him. He quickly moved away, though his head still ached. "Leave. Now. Give me one more minute," she urged. "This time, I'll use even more of my healing power." "I said leave," he shouted. Annoyance flared within her. She only wanted to help him. Why was he being so rude? Moreover, he was the one who had grabbed her hand first. Duke Dmitri stood in silence, trying to process what had just happened. What the hell had he done? He summoned his butler. When the butler arrived, he was shocked to see Lady Rowain in the Duke's bedroom. "My lady, why are you here?" he asked. She replied nervously that she had gone for a walk and had gotten lost accidentally. Duke Dmitri snapped at the butler. "The security of this mansion is pathetic. You can't even prevent one woman from wandering into my room." The butler immediately apologized and gently asked Lady Rowain to follow him. As she left, Rowain glanced back. She had revealed her power. She hoped he would seek her help soon. With a small smile, she walked away, thinking that she could be just as capricious as he was. The next morning, Duke Dmitri was still lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. He couldn't understand what had happened to him. He had lost control of his senses after being intoxicated by the scent of Lady Rowain's body. His mind had been hazy, his body unresponsive to his will, as if he had been dragged by instinct alone. Her scent had reminded him of fresh grass, clean and natural. All he had wanted was to bite her, to claim that scent as his own. The desire had been overwhelming. No, he thought, it wasn't a seductive fragrance. It must have been some kind of hallucinatory magic. Magic incense had no effect on him. He was practically immune to such tricks. And yet, he felt strangely refreshed. Could she truly possess healing abilities? His curiosity about Lady Rowain Larzell deepened. As he drifted back to sleep, he found himself dreaming. He stood in a vast field surrounded by fresh grass. The air was cool and crisp. In the distance, he saw a girl playing with cats. Isn't that Lady Rowain Larzell? But as he looked closer, the girl had black hair. It wasn't the Rowain he knew. What was she doing among those cats? The cats surrounded her affectionately, playing around her feet. They brought her small gifts and she laughed softly. Then he noticed the scent. It was the same fragrance Lady Rowain carried. Suddenly, the cats turned toward him. One by one, they approached. They spoke. "We sent that child," they said. "She wanted to come to us too soon, but we did not allow it." They asked him to make her happy. Abruptly, Duke Dimitri woke up. He stared at the ceiling in shock. What kind of dream was that? A maid approached Lady Rowain and informed her that her sister had come to see her. Rowain was shocked. Why had Linear suddenly come here? Had she failed to escape and been caught? Suppressing her anxiety, Rowain decided to meet her and see what had happened. Just then, several maids approached her nervously. They explained that Duke Dimitri had ordered them to wash her thoroughly, until every trace of her scent was completely gone. She was stunned. What scent was he talking about? Her thoughts drifted back to the previous night. How strangely the Duke had behaved, almost as if he were intoxicated. Could it have been because of her scent? Without further hesitation, Lady Rowain agreed to wash up before going to see her sister. The maids carefully and gently bathed her, scrubbing her skin with great attention. When it came to makeup, they handled every detail with precision. However, when it was time for her to dress, they informed her that the master had ordered them not to let her wear the clothes she had brought, as they might carry her scent. Instead, he had prepared a dress for her. Rowain felt the Duke was going a little too far, but she agreed nonetheless. The maids quickly dressed her. She looked absolutely stunning. Her vibrant red hair and the elegant, vintage-style gown perfectly complemented her radiant and graceful beauty. As she walked to meet her sister, doubt crept into her mind. What if the Duke decided to marry Linear instead? Would all her efforts fail? No. There was no way he would give up on her healing ability. The butler informed the Duke that Lady Rowain had arrived and opened the door for her. When she entered, she saw Linear standing inside with Duke Dimitri. "Rowain!" Linear exclaimed. "How did you get here? Why do you look so worried?" Then she glared angrily at the Duke. "You didn't do anything bad to my sister, did you?" "No, of course not," Dimitri replied calmly. Linear turned back to Rowain. "Don't say anything. Father sent me here to bring you back." Rowain noticed faint injury marks on Linear's hand. She immediately understood. Her father must have taken his anger out on her. She had been too complacent. She should have expected that Linear might not be able to escape, and that their father would punish her. She couldn't keep avoiding this situation. Determination flashed in her eyes. "Duke," she said firmly, "may we speak for a moment?" Linear hesitated but eventually stepped outside, leaving Lady Rowain and Duke Dimitri alone in the room. "What do you wish to say?" Dimitri asked. "I'll be straightforward," Rowain replied. "Marry me." He raised an eyebrow. "Why should I marry you? I don't want to be sold off as the Emperor's mistress," she said evenly. "And don't you want to avoid being forced to pair with the Emperor's illegitimate child, living under his constant scrutiny? In this world, beastmen were treated as a slave class. Duke Dimitri of Blois had been born after the previous Duke of Blois assaulted his mother, who had been a slave. Despite being of ducal blood, he had been treated like a slave himself. On the battlefield, when all the young lords of Blois had perished, he alone survived and achieved great merit. That was how he became the Duke, a Beastman Duke. An unprecedented event. The only capable Beastman Duke in history. The imperial family viewed him unfavorably. They were uneasy about his strength and too prideful to marry him to a legitimate member of the imperial family. "Don't you want revenge against the imperial family?" Rowain asked quietly. Dmitri studied her carefully. He was impressed by how much she knew about him. "The situation makes it urgent for me to marry," he admitted. "But it doesn't have to be you." "Then let me be your bride instead of my sister," Rowain said firmly. "In return, I will use my ability to help you." His eyes narrowed. She was remarkably confident, and she seemed able to distinguish his curse. "Let's help each other," she continued. "But I have conditions." He remained silent, allowing her to speak. "First, we will maintain our marital relationship only in public. Privately, we will remain independent. You may have mistresses as long as they do not tarnish my name. Second, after 3 years, we will divorce. And third, we will treat each other with respect. If you refuse to respect me, then we will mutually disregard each other." The Duke gave her a long look. "You claim you want nothing, yet you've planned everything in detail." He watched her suspiciously, but she remained calm. After a moment, Duke Dmitri said, "I have a condition of my own. You must tell me about the perfume you're using." Rowain blinked in confusion. "I'm not using any perfume." His expression darkened instantly. Suddenly, he grabbed her and pulled her toward him. "A strong scent is coming from you," he said in a low voice. "And you still deny it?" His gaze burned intensely. "If you intend to seduce me with this perfume," he continued, "you should reconsider. Because right now, I want to devour you." Lady Rowain suddenly snaps her hand back and coldly tells him that if he continues being rude like this, she will not help him at all. After saying that, she immediately leaves the room. Outside, Linear quickly approaches her and nervously asks if everything is all right. Rowain simply nods in affirmation. Then she calls the butler and calmly tells him to prepare a carriage because she will be returning home. Hearing this, Linear becomes even more anxious. She quietly asks Rowain how she plans to escape again if she goes back now. But Rowain reassures her not to worry. She is completely confident that Duke Dmitri will be able to handle the situation. Meanwhile, in the Larzell household, Linear's father is furious. He paces around the room in anger, unable to understand why it is taking them so long to return. Even worse, he has received no news from them. The previous night, he had already discovered that the bride had been switched. What he cannot understand is why Lady Rowain would do something like this, and why Linear decided to play along with the trick. He angrily shouts at Linear. Does she even understand how much property His Majesty promised in exchange for Lady Rowain? The reward was the Mu-Ar diamond mine, and that incredibly valuable mine would belong entirely to the Larzell family. Thinking about losing such wealth makes him even more frustrated. He drops heavily onto the sofa, his face twisted with anger. There is no way he wants to lose such a massive reward from the Emperor. But Linear is trembling with fear. She had already failed to escape, and now her father is furious with her. Suddenly, he shouts at her again. He orders her to go immediately and bring Lady Rowain back. And if she cannot please His Majesty in Rowain's place, then she must do whatever it takes to bring Rowain back. Now all he can do is wait. He continues pacing around the room restlessly. Then finally, a maid enters and informs him that Lady Rowain has arrived. But the moment Rowain steps inside the house, she is greeted with a loud, painful slap across her face. Her father had struck her without hesitation. He angrily demands to know why she did something so foolish. He always believed she was a smart child, but now she has done something completely reckless. At that moment, his wife quickly tries to calm him down. She warns him that if he leaves a mark on Rowain's face, His Majesty will be furious. Hearing this, Rowain can't help but think bitterly. These people are not worried about her at all. They are only worried about her face. Because of the Emperor. The situation painfully reminds her of her previous life. Back then, her father used to beat her mother for absolutely no reason. One day, he beat her so brutally that her mother was left in critical condition and had to be rushed to the hospital. Even while struggling to breathe, her mother grabbed Yunsu's hand and told her something she would never forget. Do not live like me. You must become strong. Strong enough that no one can ever hurt you. Remembering her mother's words fills Yunsu with burning rage. She slowly lifts her head and stares directly at her father. Her eyes are filled with fierce determination. Her father notices the look immediately. He glares at her and asks what that expression means. Is she rebelling against him? Without hesitation, Rowain answers, yes. And she asks him a simple question. Is there anything stopping her from doing that? Her father's face twists in fury. He calls her a wretch and accuses her of daring to rebel against him. Then he slaps her again with full force. The impact is so strong that her cheek instantly becomes red and swollen. Still furious, he shouts that she dares to hold a grudge against her own father, after everything he has done to help her catch the Emperor. But instead of crying, Rowain suddenly laughs. She tells him to beat her as much as he wants. Just as he raises his hand to hit her again, his wife quickly stops him. She reminds him that if His Majesty finds out about this, it will be disastrous for their entire family. Hearing this, he finally lowers his hand. Suppressing his anger, he coldly orders Rowain to return to her room immediately. But Rowain has already thought of another plan. Suddenly, she slaps herself. Her parents stare at her in complete shock. Has she gone crazy? But Rowain continues slapping her own face again and again. Her father quickly orders the servants to stop her. 2 servants rush forward and grab both of her hands to restrain her. Then Rowain calmly asks her father something terrifying. If the Emperor finds out that he beat her like this, what kind of punishment will he receive? Her father immediately becomes nervous. He asks her if she is trying to blackmail him. But Rowain calmly replies that the Emperor will believe anything she says. And she could easily tell His Majesty that her father beat her without any reason. Now her father is completely terrified. If the Emperor believes her, he could be executed. With a cold glare, Rowain warns him. If he ever lays a hand on her again, she will never forgive him. After saying that, she calmly announces that she is going to rest in her room. And now, because her face is swollen and injured, they cannot send her to the Emperor anytime soon, which means she finally has time. Time to find a way to escape. Meanwhile, back at the Blois mansion, the butler asks Duke Dimitri a serious question. What exactly does he plan to do about Lady Rowain? Dimitri remains silent for a moment. Even he is still unsure. Should he go and bring her back? Or should he leave things as they are for now? The next morning, the training ground is already lively. Soldiers and knights are practicing their sword techniques, their movements sharp and disciplined. Lady Rowain also arrives at the training ground. However, her cheeks still hurt badly. The pain from the slap has lasted longer than she expected, and even now she can still feel the burning sting. While she is standing there, a man with dark green hair approaches her. He stops in front of her and respectfully bows his head. In a calm voice, he asks if she called for him. This man is Nigel, Linier's caretaker. Without wasting time, Lady Rowain asks him directly if he loves Linier, and if he truly wants to see her again. Nigel immediately drops to one knee. His voice is filled with emotion as he answers her. Even if it is only for the last time, he still wants to see Linier, because he loves her deeply. Rowain looks at him carefully. Then she asks a difficult question. If he loves Linier that much, why did he never do anything? Even though there is a difference in their status, he simply watched as the woman he loved was forced to marry someone else. How can someone who truly loves her just stand there and do nothing? And more importantly, can he really make Linier happy? How can she be sure that his love is genuine? Nigel lowers his head in silence. But Rowain continues speaking. She tells him that when Duke Dimitri of Blois arrives, she will ask the Duke to take Nigel with him. Then Nigel should secretly join her carriage before they leave. Later, when Linier arrives in Blois, the two of them must run away together and hide somewhere safe. Somewhere far away where no one can find them. However, Rowain also knows something important. No matter what plans she makes, the final choice still belongs to Linier. Her role is only to reunite them, nothing more. Hearing her words, Nigel becomes overwhelmed with gratitude. He thanks her sincerely for helping them. Rowain then tells him something simple but important. He must take Linier far away from here. They should live quietly in a foreign land, and he must treat her well. Tears begin to form in Nigel's eyes. With deep sincerity, he promises that he will take good care of Linier. Looking at him, Rowain smiles softly. For the first time, she feels that maybe the two of them will be able to live happily on their own. Some time later, a maid suddenly rushes into Lady Rowain's room. She quickly informs her that Duke Dimitri of Blois has come to see her. Hearing this news, Rowain becomes surprised and excited. She never expected him to arrive so soon. So after all, Duke Dmitri really needs her healing power to cure his curse. The maid also reminds her of something important. Before meeting the Duke, she should touch up her face. After a while, Rowain walks toward the meeting room. Several maids quietly follow behind her. When she reaches the door, she can hear voices inside. Her father and Duke Dmitri are already talking about something. Her father sounds confused. He believed the Duke would simply agree to send Lady Rowain back. So why has he come here personally? Duke Dmitri calmly replies that there is something he wishes to discuss with Lady Rowain, and he also expects an apology from their family. The Duke came here for an apology. He quickly says that on behalf of the family, he sincerely apologizes for the incident of switching the bride. But Dmitri calmly interrupts him. There is no need to apologize, because he is actually very happy that the bride was changed. The Count becomes even more confused. Then what exactly does the Duke want to discuss? But Dmitri answers that he would prefer to discuss it directly with Lady Rowain herself. As he says this, his gaze slowly shifts toward the door, right where Rowain is standing. Lady Rowain freezes in surprise. How did he notice that she was standing there? Duke Dmitri suddenly chuckles softly, but Rowain's father frowns in confusion. He asks why the Duke suddenly started laughing. Instead of answering, Dmitri calmly stands up and begins walking toward the door. This instantly makes Rowain's father nervous. He quickly says that Lady Rowain is resting after the exhaustion of traveling such a long distance, so it might be difficult for her to meet anyone right now. But clearly, he has no idea that Rowain is already standing outside the room. He had already sensed her presence. Without hesitation, he opens the door. Then he calmly tells the Count that Lady Rowain is standing right here. Rowain becomes nervous and quickly greets Duke Dmitri politely. But her father rushes forward angrily and scolds her. Why is she here? However, Dmitri immediately interrupts him. He says that he needs to speak with Lady Rowain right now. Then, in front of her stunned father, Duke Dmitri suddenly lifts Rowain into his arms. He carries her effortlessly as if she weighs nothing. Just as he is about to take her somewhere private, her father angrily shouts at him. What kind of nonsense is he doing? Dmitri calmly places Rowain down on a sofa. Then he quietly says that things might become dangerous. Meanwhile, her father storms toward them, demanding an explanation for this behavior. He politely asks the Count to step back a little. With a cold expression, he explains that he does not like being touched by other people, so it would be better if the Count did not come any closer. Her father instantly becomes nervous. He quickly takes a step back. Then Dmitri calmly turns back to Rowain. He tells her that they should continue the conversation they could not finish last time. But as he looks at her more carefully, he suddenly notices something strange. Her face. Even though she tried to hide it with makeup, he can still see it. Her cheek is swollen and slightly red. Dmitri's expression changes instantly. His voice becomes cold. He asks her a simple question. Who hurt your face? Rowain becomes surprised. She had carefully covered the injury with makeup, yet he still noticed it. Dmitri slowly turns his gaze toward her father. His eyes are filled with cold anger. He says he never expected their family to treat her so badly. Her father quickly defends himself. He insists that it is a family matter, and claims that he was not the one who did it. He desperately tries to hide the truth, because he knows exactly what Duke Dmitri is capable of. But Dmitri says nothing more about it. Instead, he calmly takes a folded paper from his pocket. Then he hands it to Lady Rowain. He tells her to take it. When Rowain reads the document, she realizes what it is. Contract marriage. Her father immediately rushes toward her in panic. He shouts at her not to sign it, but Dmitri stops him with a single cold glance. Without hesitation, Rowain picks up the pen and immediately signs the contract. The moment her signature touches the paper, a bright magical light bursts out from the document. A magical voice echoes. It declares that Duke Dmitri of Blois and Rowain Larzel are now officially married. Their names glow brightly on the contract. Then the glowing letters slowly twist together, forming the shape of a ring. Rowain watches the magical scene in amazement. If she had known this would happen, she might have written her name a little more beautifully. But someone else in the room is not amazed at all. Her father. He stands there completely frozen, watching everything happen right in front of him. Lady Rowain's father suddenly rushes forward and tears the contract paper into pieces. But Duke Dmitri calmly informs him that it is already useless. As he clearly knows, a divorce requires the signed consent of both parties. Without that, the marriage cannot be undone. Rowain's father begins shouting in panic. He says this cannot happen. Lady Rowain was supposed to become the emperor's mistress, but now she has suddenly become the duke's wife. What will happen if the emperor finds out? That will not be good for anyone. But Dmitri simply looks at him with indifference. He says he does not care about that at all. Then he asks a cold question. Is the count speaking on behalf of the emperor? Or is he trying to impersonate royal authority? Hearing that accusation, Rowain's father immediately becomes nervous. He quickly assures Dmitri that he was not talking about that. Dmitri no longer pays attention to him. Instead, he walks toward Lady Rowain and calmly says something unexpected. Let's go home, wife. Rowain happily agrees. At this moment, she finally realizes something. She has successfully rewritten her destiny. Soon, the two of them sit inside a carriage heading toward the Blois Palace. After a moment, Lady Rowain carefully asks Dmitri something. Is it really all right for them to leave like this? Dmitri looks at her calmly. He asks what could possibly be wrong with her leaving. After all, she was already planning to leave everything for him to handle anyway. Hearing that, Rowain suddenly feels a little awkward. Just a short while ago they were strangers, and now they are suddenly husband and wife. Even addressing each other feels strangely formal. Dmitri calmly assures her that he will take care of everything. But for now, there is something else they should deal with. Her face. Rowain immediately understands what he means. Duke Dmitri wants to see her healing ability. Without hesitation, she gently touches her cheek. A soft glowing light surrounds her face. And within seconds, the swelling and redness disappear completely. Her face heals instantly. Rowain feels relieved. Dmitri watches the scene quietly, but inside he is clearly amazed. Her healing ability is far more impressive than he expected. For a moment, he quietly murmurs something to himself. She looks even more beautiful like this. Rowain turns toward him. Did he just say something? Dmitri immediately answers no. But Rowain is still suspicious. She is sure she heard something just now. Either way, the atmosphere inside the carriage becomes extremely awkward. Being alone together like this is strangely uncomfortable. Rowain silently hopes they will arrive at the mansion soon. Later that night, Duke Dmitri sits alone while slowly sipping a glass of wine. His thoughts return to what happened earlier. The way Rowain healed her cheek instantly. So her ability is real. And it seems her father does not even know about the power she possesses. If he knew, there is no way he would have tried to sell her off as a mere mistress to the emperor. Dmitri quietly leans back in his chair. Rowain is quite an interesting person. If she can lift his curse, that would be perfect. But even if she cannot heal him, having someone like her by his side would not be so bad. Then another thought crosses his mind. Rowain mentioned wanting a divorce after 3 years. Even if she willingly entered the marriage now, escaping later will not be so easy. But before that, there is still some unfinished business. Dmitri calls for his butler, Hale. The butler quickly arrives and respectfully asks if the Duke needs anything. Without answering immediately, Dmitri pulls out a knife. Then he places his hand over the wine glass. In one swift motion, he cuts his palm. Dark red blood begins to flow into the glass, slowly filling it. Dmitri then calmly tells the butler to drink the blood. By doing so, he will be able to control his inner demon for a short time. Then he gives him an order. Go and break his father-in-law's wrist for daring to lay a hand on someone who now belongs to him, and beat him badly enough that he remains bedridden for a long time. At first, the butler hesitates. Drinking the Duke's blood is terrifying. But eventually, he accepts the order. He drinks the blood. Almost instantly, dark shadows begin to surround his body. Later that night, Lady Rowain quietly walks outside the palace. The night air is calm and silent. She thinks about tomorrow. Once she reunites Nigel and Linier, many of her problems will be solved. But after that, what should she do next? But now, she has somehow twisted the original plot of the story. The real question is, will she be able to survive in this world? Her thoughts slowly drift back to her previous life. Back then, she was Seo Eun-soo. Her mother loved her deeply and always showed her warmth and affection. And her cats, They always made her happy when she played with them and took care of them. But now all of that is gone. She lost everything from her previous life. Still, she does not want to blame herself. She did her best. Even so, the future still feels uncertain. But one thing is clear. She must stay strong, no matter what happens next. Suddenly, she hears a faint sound coming from the bushes nearby. A white cat jumps out and gracefully lands on the wall. Rowan's eyes instantly begin to sparkle. This is the first time she has seen a cat in this world. The cat looks beautiful and elegant. It has glossy white fur, bright green eyes, and a long graceful tail. But suddenly, the sight reminds her of her own cats. They also looked healthy and full of life like this. Rowan slowly sits down. Tears begin falling from her eyes. She softly whispers that she misses her cats. The white cat lets out a quiet meow. Then it stretches its body along the edge of the wall. That sound catches Rowan's attention again. She quickly looks up. Is the cat about to leave? Rowan quickly calls out for it to wait. But the cat suddenly jumps down and runs away. Rowan watches it disappear. She feels a little sad. She quietly wonders whose cat it might be. But what she does not notice is that someone is hiding nearby, because the cat she just saw was actually the Beastman himself, Duke Dimitri. The Duke Dimitri returned to his office, feeling relieved that his identity had not been exposed. But the more he thought about Lady Rowan, the more mysterious she seemed. It had been only a small noise he made, yet she still noticed him. And what he saw next surprised him even more. She was crying. Crying because she missed her cats. This was not the image he had of the notorious woman who was rumored to cruelly abuse and kill Beastmen prisoners. Dimitri watched silently, amazed. Even demons could cry that sadly. The next morning, Linear and Nigel embraced each other tightly, tears flowing down their faces. With this scene, Lady Rowan feels extremely awkward. Quietly, she gives them her gold and tells them to use it to escape far away and live safely. Linear's eyes filled with joyful tears. She thanked Rowan sincerely, saying that without her help, escaping would have been impossible. She even admitted that she had misunderstood Rowan all this time. If only they had talked more before, things might have been different. At that moment, a man informed them that everything had been prepared. It was time to depart. As Linear and Nigel stepped into the carriage, Lady Rowan told her sister to take care of herself. Linear replied that she would never forget this kindness. And if Rowan ever needed help, she should not hesitate to contact her. For the final moment, Lady Rowan told her sister to live happily and live freely. Linear smiled brightly and tells her not to worry, encouraging her to stay happy. Then the carriage departed from the Blois Duchy, beginning a new journey with Nigel by her side. Soon after, a butler arrived with several maids. He informed Lady Rowan that the master wished to have breakfast with her, and the maids had been brought to assist with her preparations. These 2 maids will now serve you from today onward, the butler explained. Both maids bowed respectfully toward Lady Rowan, but they looked extremely nervous. Considering Rowan's terrible reputation, she could understand why. So she calmly told them not to feel awkward or uncomfortable. Let's prepare quickly, she said. I can wash myself. You only need to help me with the dressing. The maids exchanged glances. Then they nodded in agreement. One of them even asked if they could speak freely with her. Lady Rowan allowed it. Honestly, she had never expected that some people were even more nervous around her than she thought. And she'd dress up quickly. Another thought crossed her mind. Why did Duke Dimitri suddenly want to have breakfast with her? At this rate, she felt like she might get indigestion before even eating anything. Soon, she followed the butler down the corridor. He guided her toward the dining hall. When the doors opened, Duke Dimitri was already sitting at the dining table. Sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating him. For a moment, Rowan stared at him without blinking. Basking in the sunlight like that, he honestly looked like a lounging cat. And suddenly, she burst out laughing. Her laughter immediately caught the Duke's attention. Rowan quickly apologized, saying she had laughed without any particular reason. Dimitri simply replied that he did not mind. Then he gestured for her to sit. Let's eat together. Rowan sat down, still thinking. Yesterday in the carriage, she thought he was an extremely irritable person. But now he seemed different. Another thought suddenly crossed her mind. The cat she saw yesterday in the annex garden. What kind of cat was it? Was it a stray? Or someone's pet? Its fur color had been strangely similar to Duke Dimitri's hair. But that was impossible. Why would the Duke come to the annex where she was staying? Her thoughts were interrupted when she noticed something strange. Duke Dimitri's plate was filled entirely with meat. Only meat. Rowan blinked. Cats also love meat. Wait, could Dimitri also be a cat? She noticed his sharp teeth as well. Small fangs appeared whenever he chewed. Dimitri looked up. Were you saying something? He asked. Rowan instantly panicked. Her face turned red. She quickly changed the subject. Aren't these cherry tomatoes adorable? She said nervously. They're so round and cute. And before she could say anything else, she shoved one straight into her mouth. Inside, she was screaming at herself. Why was she making so many mistakes today? Dimitri simply watched her. Then he spoke calmly. Madam, since we are now married, you should move into my room. Rowan dropped her spoon. She stared at him in shock. Wasn't this against their contract? Why was he suddenly telling her to move into his room? Dimitri continued calmly. Marriage is a contract by nature, and cohabitation is implicitly included in that contract. Rowan immediately protested. Their agreement was not a normal marriage contract. Implicit rules should not apply here. She even suggested that they both pretend she never heard what he just said. Then she stood up and quickly left the dining room. Something was wrong. In the original novel, Duke Dimitri never bothered Linear like this. She needed to get out of there quickly. The butler turned toward Dimitri. Why did Madame leave in such a hurry? He asked. Did something happen during the meal? Dimitri looked down at the table. Then he picked up a cherry tomato. Is this cherry tomato cute? He asked. The butler blinked. No matter how I look at it, it's just a cherry tomato. Dimitri frowned slightly. But Lady Rowan said it was cute. He looked at the butler again. What color is it? The butler replied. Cherry tomatoes are red. Slightly orange. Perhaps she likes them because their color resembles her eyes. Dimitri looked confused. How could this resemble her color? Then the butler suddenly realized the problem. As a beastman with cat blood, Duke Dimitri could not see red clearly. Cats often struggle to distinguish red and green colors. So the butler explained. Lady Rowan's eyes are the color of ripe cherry tomatoes, and her hair is the color of red wine. Finally, Dimitri understood. Until now, he had thought her hair looked more like grass, which made no sense. But now it finally clicked. Still, something else puzzled him. Why did she become so shy when he mentioned sharing a room? In a world that despises beastfolk, revealing one's true form is considered shameful. Dimitri hadn't even been serious. Most nights, he slept comfortably in his cat form anyway. But there was one thing he did regret. He could no longer keep that sweet grassy scent close to him. Dimitri stood up. The butler asked if he was heading to the office. Dimitri shook his head. No, I'm going to bask in the sun. A maid informed Lady Rowan that she had received an invitation to a tea party. Rowan was surprised. Who would invite her? She looked at the card carefully, and her expression immediately turned serious. This was bad. She never expected that she would have to meet this person. Still, she told the maid to help her change her clothes. Meanwhile, in the annex garden, Duke Dimitri had transformed into a cat. He was lying under the sunlight, carrying a cherry tomato in his mouth while basking comfortably. Suddenly, a cheerful voice called out, "Oh, you're here again." Dimitri immediately stiffened. Lady Rowan. She looked genuinely happy to see him. "You look even more handsome in the daylight," she said warmly. Dimitri became confused. How did she always find him so easily? Looking at her reaction, Dimitri realized something. She must think he was just a regular cat. Lena smiled brightly. "By the way, pretty girl, why are you carrying a cherry tomato in your mouth like that?" Dimitri's jaw dropped. Pretty girl? He was male, by the way. In his shock, the cherry tomato slipped from his mouth and rolled toward Lena. She picked it up curiously. "Did you bring this?" she asked. Dimitri felt extremely embarrassed. He had brought the tomato because someone told him its color was similar to her eye color. He only wanted to compare it. But now it looked like he had been caught. Panicking, Dimitri ran away while Lady Rowan tried to stop him. He quickly hid under a bush and began licking his paw nervously. Next time, he decided he would check her eye color more carefully. But suddenly Lena appeared right beside the bush. "Can I take the cherry tomato with me?" she asked. Dmitri grew irritated. In his mind he shouted, "Stop following me." Lena continued speaking happily. Tomatoes help prevent obesity in cats. They're also good for anti-aging. Dmitri froze. Was she implying that he looked old and fat? He immediately started checking his body. Feeling embarrassed, he ran away again. Why was he getting so upset over her words? Not long after, several soldiers were talking among themselves. Suddenly, Duke Dmitri approached them with an angry expression. "We're going to spar," he said. "Follow me." The soldiers looked confused. "But today is supposed to be self-training time," one of them replied. Dmitri glared at them. "Just follow me." The soldiers quickly obeyed. They whispered to each other nervously. "Does anyone know why the Duke is so angry today?" During the sparring session, they soon found out. They were defeated very badly. After some time, Dmitri transformed into a cat again and returned to the annex garden. He still couldn't stop thinking about that woman. A woman who supposedly loved attention, yet quietly stayed in the annex. A woman who cried while thinking about her cats, even though she was known for abusing beastfolk. The more he thought about it, the more suspicious it felt. He needed to investigate her further. Not only that, he had also come here to mark his territory. Suddenly, he noticed something. There was a small box placed nearby. Inside the box was something that looked like a toy. Curious, Dmitri climbed down and walked toward it. When he looked inside, he could smell Lena's scent. There was a soft fur ball inside the box. He thought she had simply left some trash behind. But the moment he touched it, the ball suddenly moved. A small bell rang. Dmitri froze in surprise. Then he touched it again. And again. Felt strangely fun. He kept playing with the fur ball again and again, wondering why it felt so enjoyable. Then he looked up. And froze. Lady Rowaine was standing there. Her eyes were shining with pure joy. Dmitri felt completely embarrassed. She had seen everything. He felt utterly defeated. How could he have been tricked so easily? Rowaine smiled brightly. "Oh my God! You are so adorable," she said. "You're so cute. I'm glad you like the toy." Dmitri didn't understand what made her so happy. Without saying anything, he quickly walked away, leaving Lady Rowaine standing there, slightly confused. Later, the butler was shocked to see Duke Dmitri return from his morning walk so quickly. "Your Grace, are you feeling all right?" he asked. Dmitri's face was slightly red with embarrassment, though he didn't understand why. He simply assured the butler that everything was fine. Back in the office, Dmitri tried to focus on his work. But his mind kept drifting back to Lena. When he was in his cat form, she approached him without hesitation. She praised him endlessly. She even adored him. And somehow, that feeling was driving him crazy. Why did it feel so strange? But the truth was simple. Duke Dmitri had begun to fall in love with her. Eventually, he decided to rest for a while. Soon, he fell asleep. But what followed was a horrible dream. A woman's voice echoed in the darkness. She laughed at him. "Dmitri, you look pathetic. Such a vulgar appearance. You pretend to act like a human even though you have a tail. It suits you better inside there. So why don't you just stay there forever? Look at you trembling. It's hilarious. You're an eyesore. Get lost." Dmitri clenched his fists. It was that dream again. That same nightmare. He forced himself to breathe. "I'm not a helpless child anymore," he muttered. But suddenly, another voice echoed. Lady Rowaine's voice. "Duke Dmitri, help me." Dmitri looked up. He saw a woman grabbing Lena's neck tightly. Without thinking, he shouted, "Don't touch my wife." Dmitri suddenly woke up. It was only a nightmare. But something felt wrong. Why was he having this dream again? And why was Lena in it? He immediately rang the bell for his servant. A servant rushed inside. "Your Grace, is there anything I can help you with?" Dmitri asked one question. "Where is the Duchess?" The servant replied that Madame had gone out. She had accepted a tea party invitation from Lady Elvis. Dmitri's eyes widened. Lady Elvis, the woman who poisoned his mother. The woman who fed him a harsh magical poison when he was still a child. And now, she was targeting his wife. Dmitri stood up instantly. "Prepare my horse," he ordered. "It's been a while. I should go pay my respects to my mother." Moments before leaving for the tea party, Lady Rowaine instructed the maid to prepare the carriage. She said she needed to go to a luncheon, but her personal maid rudely questioned her. Are you planning to visit Lady Elvis wearing that outfit? Rowain looked at her calmly. Is there a problem with wearing pants? In her own opinion, she looked perfectly fine. The maid hurriedly searched through the wardrobe. She nervously explained that Lady Elvis was a very dignified woman. The luncheon she hosts is a formal event. You should at least dress appropriately, the maid said. Soon she brought out a blue floral midi skirt. But Lady Rowain clearly didn't like the dress. She looked at the maid and asked a simple question. Does clothing determine a person's dignity? Her expression turned colder. Do I look undignified to you? The maid stiffened. She tried to explain that women usually wore skirts for formal occasions. But that only made Rowain even angrier. You are the one who doesn't understand, she replied sharply. Rowain slowly raised her hand. The maid flinched. She thought punishment was coming. But instead, Rowain showed her the ring on her finger. The ducal ring. I am the Duchess, she said calmly. The person you should address as Lady here is not Lady Elvis. It is me. She also pointed out that the maid had been using Lady Elvis's name far too casually. Then Rowain turned toward another maid. From now on, you will be my personal maid. Your name is Arzan. Correct. The maid was stunned, but she quickly bowed and thanked her. Rowain immediately gave her first order. While she attended the luncheon, Arzan needed to find a new position for Tilda. Rowain looked back at the first maid. It seems the role of my personal maid does not suit you anymore. Some time later, Lady Rowain arrived at Lady Elvis's mansion. But strangely, no one came out to greet her. She looked toward the mansion. Several people were watching her from afar, and they were clearly mocking her. Rowain quickly understood what was happening. They were trying to humiliate her. But Lady Rowain was not someone who would silently endure that kind of insult. She picked up a wooden stick and wrote a message in the dirt. It said that she had arrived. Then she turned to the coachman. Let's depart. The coachman was shocked. They had barely been there for a minute. Rowain calmly explained that she could not enter without the host's permission, so it would be perfectly fine to leave. The coachman nodded and began preparing to leave. But just then, a maid suddenly ran toward them. She stopped the carriage. The maid apologized for the delay, saying the host had been busy preparing for the luncheon. Then she invited Lady Rowain to follow her. The other ladies are waiting in the back garden. Rowain thought to herself that it would have been better if they had left earlier, but she still followed the maid. Soon they arrived at the gathering area. The maid announced her arrival. Lady Rowain has arrived. Rowain politely bowed toward Lady Elvis. It is a pleasure to meet you. Lady Elvis greeted her in return. She was the wife of the former Duke of Blois, which also made her Dimitri's mother and Rowain's mother-in-law. Lady Elvis apologized for not greeting her earlier. She claimed she had been busy preparing for the luncheon. But the moment her eyes fell on Rowain's clothes, her expression suddenly changed. Her voice became sharp. Do you not understand formal etiquette? I clearly asked you to dress formally. So why are you wearing that? Rowain immediately understood. Lady Elvis was trying to provoke her. Rowain frowned slightly but answered calmly. She explained that she had seen the instructions on the invitation. However, she had only recently arrived in Blois territory and didn't have enough time to prepare a proper outfit. But next time I will certainly dress appropriately, she said. Lady Elvis smiled thinly. She said she understood the situation. Then she offered to lend Rowain a suitable dress from the mansion. Would you like to change? Rowain politely thanked her for the offer. But she calmly explained that she had actually come to inform her that she would not be able to attend the luncheon. At that moment, a maid rushed past them. Whether it was an accident or not, the maid suddenly spilled juice all over Rowain's clothes. Her outfit was now stained. Lady Elvis smiled faintly. Your clothes are dirty now, she said. You should go change. She immediately ordered the head maid to prepare a suitable dress for Lady Rowain. With her clothes now ruined, Rowain had no choice but to agree. Some time later, the tea party officially began. The noble ladies were seated inside an ornate gazebo. After a while, Lady Rowain finally arrived and joined them. Lady Elvis smirked. Her plan had worked. Her daughter-in-law had finally appeared. But the moment Rowain stepped in, something felt strange. The other noble ladies looked at her oddly. Rowain didn't understand why at first. Then she glanced at the maid standing nearby, and immediately realized the truth. They had given her a maid's dress to wear. Rowain felt anger rising inside her. Lady Elvis calmly asked why she was still standing. "Please take a seat," she said. It was obvious. She was enjoying humiliating Rowain in front of everyone. Rowain looked at the table carefully, and then she noticed something. There was no seat prepared for her. This had been planned from the beginning. The only available seat was a maid's chair. An apron had even been placed on it. The guests began laughing. All of this was clearly arranged by Lady Elvis. She wanted to humiliate Rowain publicly. Lady Elvis repeated her request. "Please sit down. The other guests are waiting." Now she understood. Lady Elvis had planned this entire situation from the start. But Rowain had no intention of letting her get away with it. Here the video ends. Let's see how Lady Rowain will handle this situation. Will Duke Dimitri be able to reach in time to help Lady Rowain? We will find out in the next part. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.